Hello everyone and welcome to my first makeup tutorial. We're going to be showing you how to do this eye look. It's a butterfly look. Let's get into it. I start with my primer. I use the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish primer. It's my favorite primer. I use it to coat my entire face. It helps keep my pageant makeup perfect for 7 a.m. when I put it on until 10 p.m. when I was taking it off each day. Make sure you got your face coated. You want it for a nice base for your foundation. Then I go in with my concealer. I use the shade R1 from Natasha Denona. I like this concealer because it is full coverage without being cakey and helps not get in my crease. I apply this concealer everywhere to my eyes, my nose, and my chin. Anywhere you want to increase the longevity of your foundation, or if you just want more coverage, that's where you're going to want to place your concealer. I like to blend with my finger first, just to kind of spread it out to where I want it. I have better control with my fingers before I use my beauty blender. Then I'm going in with my beauty blender and I am just smoothing out my base and making sure it's consistent around the face. Then I'm going in with the Patrick Ta new foundation. I did end up buying this, but this was my first time trying it in a sample, and I absolutely adored it. It is my favorite and now will be my holy grail. I go in with this little angled topped foundation brush. Look at that coverage from one swipe. Do you see that? That is absolutely gorgeous. It matches very well to my neck, and it's now officially the 6th brand that we have at Sephora that has a shade light enough and cool enough for me to wear. The absolute gorgeous consistency of this foundation is why I highly recommend it. It is worth the price. You get a lot in it, and it feels amazing on. I go in with a beauty blender after I've applied it with a brush just to get rid of any streaks and to give it a nice even consistency. This is with versus without. Look how perfect that matches to my neck. Gorgeous. Literally perfect. I go in and I do the other side. My reasoning for doing the sides separate is it's just easier for me personally to apply it and then be able to blend it out. I feel like it gives me a better base and consistency. Not a professional, so you may use and do however you prefer. This is just my way of doing it. Personal preference comes first in makeup. Anywhere that you've now applied that next section or overlapped with the other section you've applied, you're going to want to blend out with a beauty blender once again. It gives a consistency. Look how it blends into my neck and my hairline. That way you know your foundation is going to be the same consistency throughout the entire face. Absolutely love this foundation. Next, I'm going in with some setting powder. I use the lavender shade from Fenty Beauty. It's my absolute favorite and holy grail. You get so much in it. It's so worth the price. And it gives a brightening effect if you have cool tones. This one is more purple leaning instead of pink leaning, which I find complements my complexion better. I go in and I blend out my creases just because I don't want to set any lines or wrinkles. I want to make sure that I'm setting a smooth base, as this will help me later with the rest of my makeup look. Next, I go in with just the tip of my beauty blender and I apply to the now smooth under eye, being careful to not apply any to my cheeks where I'm going to be blending blush later. Otherwise, you'll have a very hard time blending cream blushes. You'll see these creases. We don't want those. Once again, blend them out before you place your setting powder. This gives it the effect and appearance of creaseless and effortlessly smooth base for your eyeshadow in the next step. A tapping motion works well. I've tried a powder brush and I just always come running back to a puff. It's just easier for me. I prefer it. Once you're done with that, you'll go on to your blushes. This is my blush bag. We're not talking about how many I have. This is the LYS Blush Cream in the shade Unfazed. It is my absolute favorite. It's a coppery undertone. And usually I go more cool with pinks, but I do really like this copper warmth that it has. And for a Monarch Butterfly look, which is what I'm going for, you need a more red and orange blush. I go in next with the Haus Labs Glassy Lilac Blush. I like this because it gives it a little bit brighter appearance than it was just red, turning it into an almost coral. And then this one, I don't really have an answer for where it's from. I know I got it once upon a time as a sample, but I cannot tell you what brand it's from. I do love it though. I'm making it more reddish, you'll see, because I'm going to apply more orange to the top of this. This may look like a lot, but trust me, it's a trust the process. I go in with this Unreal Skin foundation stick from Charlotte Tilbury. It's too shimmery for me to wear as an actual foundation stick, but I do like it to go in and cover over any excessive pigment or any spots I want more coverage, or as a natural highlight. It does work great as a highlight or as an over top, like their Flawless filter. This one is really pretty to put over the top to give you a nice glow. I use it to just kind of blend out anywhere that I feel like the pigment is too strong. Then I'm going in with a powder. It's an eyeshadow technically from my favorite brand and palette. Spotlight is the palette from You Can Be. I go in with this orange to give it more of a sunset kissed effect. I darken in certain aspects of the upper regions, and then I lighten it in at the bottom base again and blend. Lighten it as much as you prefer. I find adding it as making it super pigmented and darker means I don't have to apply it throughout the day, and it helps with the long-lasting blush that I'm desiring. I do the other cheek, and then I do my nose. I like to do a little bit of blush on the tip of my nose. I prefer it. I know it's not super popular right now, but it's my favorite thing to do. And makeup is just doing what you love. It's a art form. Makeup is art, and your face is a canvas. This is our finished blush look. Now we're going to be moving on to eyeshadow. I go in with this Spotlight palette again. It is my absolute favorite, like I said. We're going to be using only colors from this palette as well today. I'm doing a Monarch Butterfly. You can use whatever colors you'd prefer. The consistency and pattern will be the same. I use this little rounded tipped thicker brush for blending my red that I'm going to go in and start with. I use this and I just blend the crease in a shadowy manner because you want to give that deep eyes effect. I find this is easier for me personally if I do my dark colors and then my lighter colors over the top. But again, you can do however you prefer. Mine is just my personal preference. I go in and I make sure I like the appearance of both creases before I move on to the next color. I go in with the flat-topped blending brush, and I'm going to use this orange. This is our main color. This is our main star of the show. I go in and I use this orange to lighten the crease from red and give it that Monarch Butterfly orange. That's more of a burnt orange instead of being a neon orange. Now, makeup, and especially eyeshadow, is a process, and it is very much a trust the process. So you may look at yourself and be, wow, I look like a mess. I look like a maniac. But you've got to trust the process and just keep blending, especially with your brighter and darker colors. If they're more pigmented, you just have to keep blending so they're not so harsh against your own skin tone. Next, I'm going to go in with this rounded edge top brush that's slightly thinner than the first rounded brush we used at the beginning. And I'm using this for the yellow on the outer part of my crease. I use this to lighten up the shade so it gives a sunset, like the sun is disappearing behind houses or a field. It gives the illusion of being brighter than it is. It also helps blending it out so it's not super harsh and in contrast to your skin. If you still don't like your pigment, go in with a powder foundation. This is the Maybelline powder foundation, I believe, in the lightest shade. I use this little concealer brush from Sephora collection. It's one of my favorites for blending. And you can just go in with whatever shade of powder foundation you have that matches your complexion. And you just go in and you reshape the eyeshadow and pigment to whatever color you prefer. You'll be doing this a lot, so you'll see that come through and come back quite a bit in this video. Again, I use it to blend out any part of my eyeshadow or pigment that I've gotten where I don't want it. So if you get it on your cheeks, you can always use this palette and method as well. Then I go in once again and I'm brightening that up. Trust the process of back and forth between all of your colors, so I recommend having clean brushes before you start on any makeup look such as this. I'm going in with this lighter orange to get in between my dark orange and my yellow, so it fades beautifully together and seamless, so you don't tell that there are 3 different colors there. Look at that. It's getting darker and prettier, and it's already shaping up into the colors and shape we want. Once again, just keep applying however much or however little you'd like. If you'd like to substitute and do like a pink and purple butterfly or a black and blue butterfly, you can. You just have to reformulate to whatever colors you'd prefer. But the formulation is the same. I just chose to do a monarch because I hadn't done a monarch butterfly before. I've done other butterflies, but I've not done a monarch before. I'm going in and I'm doing that yellow once again. I'm doing the inner corner of my eye now as well, not just the outer crease. My reason for this is I'm trying to give a brightening effect as it goes from my outer corner to my inner corner, much like a butterfly's wings or a sunset. And again, we're blending. This tactic is not original to me. I saw it on TikTok, and it's been my lifesaver ever since. So shout out to whoever it was that I saw that from. I'm not trying to steal your techniques, I promise. Now that we're happy with the base of it, we're going back in with the similar colors and we're going to darken. You can use a flat top brush or whatever brush you prefer. I use my fingers just because, again, toddler and easier motor skills. I'm darkening in the outer and then lightening the inner, just to give a nice pretty base and make it exactly the appearance I'm going for. If you don't have a red to use under your orange, a little bit of brown can also give you that burnt orange / monarch effect that we're going for. Then I'm just adding more yellow to brighten the middle and inner corner of my eye. Just adding as much or as little as I prefer. Once I'm satisfied with the actual color that my wings are going to be, we will be moving on next to the highlighting aspect of my face. The reason I wait to do highlight until after my eyeshadow is so I can highlight my brow bone, which is a bit difficult if you haven't finished blending your eyeshadow. I'm going to go in with the same palette, but this time use this gold shade right here. It's a Gold Sparkles. Anytime I do a warm leaning look like oranges, reds, yellows, I always go in with a gold highlight instead of a white / silver highlight. And you see I'm highlighting my brow bone and the inner corner to give it that sharp effect. I also use this as a actual highlighter, and I will be putting this on my cheeks, nose, and anywhere else I like to highlight. This is a good color for me in my warm tones, while usually I do prefer a more blue or pinky highlight. Feel free to use whatever color you'd like, though. There are not many rules to makeup. We're going to go in with the eyeshadow stick from Sephora Collection in the shade Matte Black. I'm just lining my waterline with this because it's easier than a pencil, but you can use whatever form you'd prefer, or if you'd prefer to not do this, you can as well. I only do this because it makes my eyes have a shrink / angled effect. Like a fox eye or a cat eye, it does make it more angled for me. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to go in and I'm going to finish shaping out my wings. The reason you're going to want to shape out your wings now is because it will be easier to just kind of trace around it with your eyeliner than it is to shape it yourself with eyeliner. Eyeshadow is much easier to shape with. I prefer it. You're going to take it and drag it all the way to the outer part of your eyebrow because you're going to want big versions of butterfly wings. I just keep taking the same orange, the same medium orange, and I go from one side to the other and angle it out. Then if you've got too much pigment or not enough, go ahead and blend it. Then I go in with this Epic liner from NYX Professional Makeup. I absolutely love this. It's just the brush tip in black. I prefer brush tip to a felt tip just because it feels nicer and I have better control over it. But again, if felt tip works better for you, go ahead and use that. I just give one thin band black line around my eyelash line and drag it slightly farther out on the outer corner, just barely following that line we've made with our eyeshadow. You want to start with just the tip of the brush, just because you can darken it in later and you'd prefer to have it lighter rather than darker, because you can always darken it in. You can't really lighten it once it's on without taking off the whole makeup look. So just follow that line and be happy with how you're tracing it. Feel free to stop and reassess. I do this several times. Then I'm going to go ahead and actually start shaping my wing. I'm going to trace the outline we've already created and go all the way back, bring it all the way up and angled. I'm going for a sharper butterfly look wings, but if you prefer to do rounded or more of a fairy wing look, you absolutely can. Personal preference. Once I've lined it and sharpened it, I go ahead and I do the bottom wing, which is a more oval shape, adding a little bit of sharpness to the end with a half V to make it more sharp to match the topper wing. You're going to want your top wings to be similar and make them the same consistency. So if you want rounded, do that on both eyes, but you're going to make this as easiest for yourself as possible, because you will have to repeat this process on the other eye, and you'll want to make them as symmetrical as possible. I'm darkening it in because going for a monarch butterfly means that I can have darker colors for the actual outline. If you're doing like a pink or blues or lighter colored butterfly, I would recommend doing more of a white line or a very thin line. And you can use that and get that look by using either an inkwell liner or a actual face makeup with a tiny little detailing brush. Now that I'm happier with my shape, I'm just finishing connecting them to my waterline and eyelash line. I darkened mine in because I will be adding some white spots to it later. Currently, I'm doing my lines. You're going to want to make simple lines up and down each wing. I go for V shapes just because you're going to have to recreate this on the other wing. Don't go too extravagant or try making it more difficult than it has to be. I repeat this process on my other eye. We're going to speed that up for you because it does take me a while to get the shape I look for in this. Sometimes our wings, we aim for twins, but sometimes they're sisters and sometimes they're cousins. It's okay. It's okay to mess up because you can't really learn if you don't fail once in a while. I go ahead and shape this similar to my other one. I do round it out a bit different and difficult, so I do end up having to go through and touch this up. Feel free to use whatever you'd like to clean it up. I use makeup remover and Q-tips because it's a bit more defined, and that way all you have to do is reline it with some concealer to paint over the previous lines and then get it to match the other line and the other eye. Once you're happy with how they look, you're going to start doing your lines. Once again, I do triangle patterns just because they match easier to make. You're going to want to make them as symmetrical as possible, count them out, or however you'd prefer to. I lose track of them sometimes, but I try to make them look as cohesive and symmetrical as possible. These are super easy, and they do give that appearance of actual butterfly looks, but you can do rounded, or you can do actual patterns if you'd prefer. Again, this makeup look is easy to interpret however you'd prefer to. This is just my tutorial on how to do it. Never be scared to try out a new style or to rearrange it to colors that you prefer. I'm just kind of smoking out my lines under my waterline to give it a darker effect, to combat any sleepy looking that I have going on. I'm fixing up this wing as well because I was a little bit over the line where my other one was. Once you're happy with your lines, you're going to go in with this Epic liner. I prefer to use this one, but you can use whatever color you'd like. I use a white Inkwell liner from NYX Professional Makeup. I go in and I do some dots on my black bands that I've done to outline my wings. Feel free to keep track of these. I did not. I lost count. And I just apply them wherever I'd like to. I place them mostly on the outside and on those dark lines. But feel free to put some inside or anywhere else, or less, or not at all if you prefer to. Then I repeat the same process on the other eye. Monarchs have these little dots on them, so that's why I'm preferring to use this. But you can use this or any other color, or just don't do it at all if you'd prefer to, if you're using other colors or other makeup. After I'm done with my liner and I'm happy with my shape and my colors, I go in with mascara. First one I start with is the Lash Clash from Anastasia. It's in the shade black. I just go in and I coat my lashes with this like I would with any mascara. I love how voluminous and darkening it is. Next, I go in with the Ilia mascara. I use the Limitless one that's in shade After Midnight, and I use the comb side of this brush. I absolutely adore the brush. I don't like the product as much as I like the brush, but this comb side is easy to separate and your lashes. It's my favorite to layer with just because the brush is superb and one of a kind. I just go in and separate and raise my lashes as high or as voluminous as I want. I just don't like having stuck together lashes personally, personal preference. Before I go on to the next eye, this is the finished product. You can see the difference between these mascaras. Once I finish my mascara, final step is my eyebrows. I use the Hourglass line pencil for my brows in the shade Auburn. My reason for this is because every other brow pencil I have swatched at Sephora is more brown leaning than red. It's very hard to find a red eyebrow pencil, so that's one I stick with it. I then go in and I coat and line the other before I use the connected brush to smooth it all out so there's no patchiness. We just speed up that process here. And we are done. I don't show it here, but I do set it with my one size spray. You can use whatever size you'd prefer, but this is the finished product. I hope you enjoyed watching, and please don't forget to check in on my Instagram. I will see you all next time.